What's up, beautiful humans? Today, we've got quite an interesting movie to go through. And it's a movie that's been in the headlines recently. It's being referenced regularly on Twitter. I've seen questions about this film constantly, criticisms about this film constantly. So in this video, we'll try to break the film down and figure out exactly what to expect when you're going in to watch Space Jam: A New Legacy. So Space Jam: A New Legacy is the newest Space Jam film. The first one came out a long time ago and starred Michael Jordan, who, everyone knows is and always has been a GOAT, one of the best of all time. So the film has a runtime of about 2 hours in total and stars a pretty star-studded cast. A couple standouts include, obviously, LeBron James. We also have Zendaya, one of my favorite actresses and truly a stunner in every sense of the word. She plays the role of Lola Bunny, which was another case in contention with this film because Lola Bunny used to be very thick in the original films. She was kind of reduced in her assets, so to speak, because, this film is very targeted towards a children's audience and they thought it would be a good move. Let's just say the original Lola Bunny will be missed. In this film, we also have Don Cheadle, who plays the role of Algae Rhythm, the main bad guy in the film, as well as Michael B. Jordan makes a cameo, Kyrie Irving makes a cameo. There's a good amount of cameos in this film, and that's one of the strong points, and I'll point to that in a second when I'm talking about what's unique about the film. But just know there's a lot of pretty big stars in the film. So Space Jam: A New Legacy follows LeBron James and specifically his relationship with his son. One day, LeBron and his son get sucked into a different alternate universe, but essentially like a digital universe. And they're held hostage by Algae Rhythm. So Algae Rhythm proposes that they have a basketball match, a one-on-one showdown, essentially, where each create their own fantasy teams, and then they'll play in an exhibition match, upon which the winner of that match, if it's LeBron James, he will get his son back, and he will get to go back to the real world. And if Algae Rhythm wins, LeBron James is stuck in this world forever, his son will remain kidnapped, and there are other drastic consequences. So essentially, this film follows LeBron James as he embarks to build this master team and to beat Algae Rhythm. So in terms of characters specifically, there isn't much character development done outside of LeBron James and his son specifically. There's a lot of fantastic character development between them two and their relationship and what it means to be a father and what it means to be a son. But don't expect much character development for any other character outside of that. Whether it be Algae Rhythm, whether it be all of the cartoon characters that are involved in this film. Really, the film is focused on LeBron James, and so if you're a fan of LeBron James, if you're really into him as a person or him in general, you're gonna love this film because he's in pretty much every scene. He's the focal point of pretty much every interaction. The film is kind of a little bit of fanfare towards LeBron James, as he is referenced constantly. So in terms of if it holds your attention or not, the film, I think, is very much designed for a younger audience who has very short attention span. There's a big focal point on making information and everything really quick, and what I mean by that is you will see settings change rapidly, as well as characters, as well as universes. This film is very rapidly paced, and I wouldn't say that's a strong point of this. Essentially, since LeBron is on this quest to gather up a bunch of really great characters to make the perfect team, it cycles through a bunch of universes as he looks for those characters, which is fine. But it cycles through them so quickly that it often feels like no universe is really well developed, nothing is really spent time in and really exemplified, nothing is really well developed. It's all just kind of a blur to get to an endpoint, to get to somewhere. The perfect example of this being done well would be the Lego universe, and specifically the Lego movies 1 and 2. But Lego movie 1 did a fantastic job of bringing together so many different universes, so many different characters and references all at once without making it seem like the film was all just a series of cut together references. So there were hidden references that if you paused the movie, if you slowed down, if you took the time to actually watch it multiple times, you'd catch. There's also references that were, very blatant, references that everyone saw and enjoyed, references for younger kids, references for a little bit older audiences. In this film, it's nothing like that. The film just spits out at you reference after reference, from popular shows to popular films, pop culture references that are engaging because it's like, oh, it's fun to sit back and just watch as the film shows you a scene from Mad Max, and then as it flips to a scene from Looney Tunes, as it flips to a scene from an old traditional black and white movie. In that sense, it's interesting as it changes the setting off, but it never really develops any of those, and all of it seems kind of thrown together last minute, and all of it seems as if they throw together references solely to have references in the film, not to add any sort of substance, not to add any sort of value, just to have them there. And because of that, I think it falls flat heavily on that specific aspect. As fun as it is to recognize famous characters or your beloved characters, none of them really add much to the film, and you don't feel the essence of those characters in the film. It's more just they're on screen for you to look at. Also, the jokes in this film are essentially all one-liners. So if you're a big fan of films like Fast and Furious, or films where it's essentially just a bunch of one-liners stacked up one after each other, and Fast and Furious at least has a bit of a good plot and, pretty great values like family and so on and so forth. But no, I'm talking about in Space Jam, it's one-liner after one-liner after one-liner, and a lot of them fall flat because they're just kind of like, oh, I get it, it's kind of a fun pun, but that's it, Now for a younger audience who maybe hasn't developed the need for that more sophisticated humor, a younger audience who maybe is just more than happy with a bunch of puns might love this film. And that's the caveat with this film. You need to go into understanding that it is a children's film meant to attract the newest generation of children, and as such, it might not engage majority of viewers. But if you're someone with very short attention span who likes a ton of things going on screen, this is definitely the film for you. In terms of what's unique about this film, as I mentioned before, all the references are fantastic. If you really love the Warner Bros. Universe, if you like all the characters that they've put out, or if you like films that reference a huge variety of both real life personalities like basketball players and commentators and stuff like that, in addition to fictional characters like King Kong and Iron Giant and just a bunch of characters for you to pick out and kind of spot, then you're gonna like this film because it definitely has that. If you want those characters' identities to actually be in the film and to add to the film, then I wouldn't say you're gonna like the film because a lot of them are there just to be there, like I mentioned before. Now, one good thing about this film, one thing they really nailed was the animation. And it's actually stunning, in my opinion. I was so surprised by how they were able to blend the animated world with real life characters. And they did it so fantastically in this film. Everything is seamless, animations are crisp and super well made and are flashy and cool altogether, right? When characters transport from world to world, when characters interact with each other, it looks seamless, it looks very well made, it doesn't look thrown together. Another really interesting thing that I found was the dynamic between LeBron James and his son. Now, what I found even more interesting about this was in real life, LeBron's son, Bronny, is a video game player. In this film, there's a focus about, LeBron training his son to be a basketball player because he believes his son has the talent required to be a basketball player. And I found it so interesting how in real life, LeBron is dealing with the same thing with his son, Bronny, as Bronny obviously is fantastic on the court. And if you watch him play, it's amazing. But in addition to that, Bronny's also really great at video games. He plays Call of Duty, NBA with some of the biggest stars and streams on Twitch and earns money that way as well. Even though Bronny is such a star in terms of basketball and has a potential to be a famous basketball player, I think Bronny himself is very interested in video games in that realm and in streaming. And so that dynamic, I think, has a real life counterpart that's very engaging to think about. If that stood out to you as well, if you watch this film, let me know in the comments below, because I found that to be very engaging. But altogether, I'll give this film a 2 out of 4, as in, if anything I mentioned in this review struck you as interesting, as something that caters to you, then I'd recommend checking it out. If not, it's probably a great movie to pass on. This is also a great movie to watch while working on a project, a movie where you don't really have to focus on it because there's a lot happening and a lot of characters that would be fun to just look up and point out and take in for a second before going back to work. But essentially, it might not be a film you'd want to fully invest time in unless, as I mentioned before, something in this review struck you as catered to you. And until next time, I'll catch you all later.